It's Real and Raw, and I am Lynn Serrano, and you are
I'm Brian.
on the go, the man on the go.
Mm-hmm.
And soon you're going to get to see Jerry, right? In a couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm.
or what was that date again?
Next Wednesday.
Oh, so excited.
Week from, what is today? Tuesday? Yeah, week from tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, I'm super excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how was your training?
It's okay. A few nuggets here and there.
Yeah. Well, we are happy that you took time. Are you going from here back home?
Not yet. Conference isn't done yet.
Oh, okay. But you decided to come outside for some fresh air that day.
Because I have no room anymore.
Oh, okay.
Checkout is at noon. So.
Well. Yeah. Hi, Tracy. Thanks for being here with us.
Good morning, Tracy.
Caught you guys right away. Yay, Michelle's
here.
Welcome.
Welcome here, Michelle.
Oh, no. Truck Brian.
Starting to become a pattern, isn't it, Ray? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what's so funny is we're taking turns because come June, God only knows where I'm going to be. Mm-hmm. So one thing we love to be is so real and raw that we definitely go with the flow. And that's just how life should be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is going with the flow. So I am so grateful that you are here, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And that
glad to be here.
Yeah. And here we are talking today about relationship capital known when others are taking advantage of you. Day 2 is family. And I just had my sister trying to message me, so I hung up on her. Oh, and there's my sister-in-law, Jules. Mm-hmm. Good morning. She's sending us lots of love, Brian.
That's awesome.
We can always use that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Jules, Roxy was just on the phone. It's actually been going pretty good as far as re-talking to my sister. So so far it's going good, but it's definitely, oh my gosh, one of my classmates from Syracuse.
Hey, Julie.
Julie, thank you for being here. So I have Julie, my class friend, and then I got Jules, my sister-in-law. So, Hey, Ray, thanks for being here.
Ray.
So, it's funny that we're talking about relationship capital now because, revisiting things in my past and family members and things like this, and having hindsight now compared to back then and realizing the value of putting your feelings is just as important as other people's feelings. And we have a way of just forgetting that if we're not in a good place, how can we truly be a good place to be in other relationships, Correct. Family, or anything,
I mean, I'll be fully transparent. Yesterday was terrible. Anxiety and depression was at an all-time high. And the biggest thing about it is that you're living life through a lens, right? We all do. But it's like, if I had better sleep and if I wasn't suffering from this right now, would I experience life differently? And the answer is yes, right? But you don't know that because it's not like you can disconnect how you're feeling and your disorder from actually what's taking place. It doesn't work that way. Because if we could do that, we would do it in a heartbeat. Like, no, I don't want to feel like that, right? So it's when we're ever in a space of conflict, or if life's showing up a certain way, it's not out there. It's all within us, because the origin about how we see life is through our own lens, and that begins with us. So as it pertains to today's topic of family, is that we have to go back with our own lens, right? Everything that we see is based on, having those people in our lives. And if we had a good relationship with them, if we didn't, if it's had trials and tribulations, all of that is firing at the same time. And there's no disconnecting from it. That's not how life works.
Yeah. I'm glad you're saying about being transparent, because, I've him and hawed about it. And, that's why I love the relationship with you, Brian, is you allow me to have that comfort zone of communicating like this and be vulnerable with you and our audience. And I thank you every day from the bottom of my heart for that, because writing this book, putting my foot in the mouth and writing this book, reminds me, you see, you're more transparent about depression and all those things. I have depression, postpartum brain injuries, and all sorts of stuff that I just choose not to give any light to, which I know you don't either. But like you said, I mean, I continue to have fought lately, the last few days, where I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating. I'm just thinking of, how to share stories in my past and this and that. But I also have it ingrained, just like you, that no, I said I'm doing this. It's going to be done. I need to put the work in. I talked to Scott today, and it's like, you got your creative brain and you got your business brain and you got all these things going. And yet, I'm thankful that I'm surrounded by people that let me banter or speak it out instead of being, in a rubber room and talking it out myself.
Mm-hmm.
But, I sit there and those feelings of, why, Lynn, why put yourself out there? Why do this? Why are you doing this? The frustration and the old, and even as much control and therapy and things you do to keep those voices and those things in check, we have a chemical imbalance in us too. We've got that thing that that underlying thing. Is this my, hi, Lindsay, is that my niece or something? Oh, I don't even know if that's her. Anyways, love and light to both. Thank you, Scott. But it's one of those things of trying to understand, well, why would I put myself into this position? But I also feel like I have something to prove to myself, that instead of talking about doing this book imperfectly, be vulnerable, Lynn, do what you want to do, and don't, like Tracy helped me, because I wanted to put myself down for the fact that it's not going to be perfect. I wanted to put myself down. I don't want the excuses, but I realized that I'm going to write a book after this book about writing books and the feelings that go through with it, and the things I learned with doing this. And if it helps people to understand that if Lynn can write a book in 30 days and be vulnerable to do this, that they too, like, that's just an excuse for us to say we can't do it. Let's at least believe that if we take the actions, we can accomplish it.
Right.
And and we don't change the trajectory of our thoughts or our family until we change our mind and our desire to change, which means leveling up from where you were and for where you want to go.
I think that one of the things I did not do is because of how my world looked yesterday and what really was there. Obviously, when your brain is filled with all of that, is that the worst thing you can do is make people wrong, right? Because you're not able to, you're experiencing life through a certain way, right? And you don't know if that's definitely not your normal way, but you don't know anything else because there's nothing you can do, right? Unless you want to take a nap or wait until it passes. But the worst thing you can do is make somebody wrong. And so in those kinds of moments, I just withdraw. I just disconnect. And it just felt like there was an absence yesterday, an absence of support, an absence of whatever. And and even on my walk with a mentor of mine, because he's actually in Milwaukee here, and the guy that started me on walking every day, he's on day number 760 something, but he talked about anxiety and depression today. And it's just like, I think that to some people it might be conceptual versus actually like that is what they've clinically have, right? Especially if it's a generational thing where, it's like, oh, I'm so stressed, I must have anxiety, versus like actually having to a level that is debilitating, right? When you have it to a debilitating level, you don't want to face the world, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So from somebody that's a little bit stressed out because of something happened or they forgot to do something, is not the same thing. Like,
Brian, Lindsay, are you still here? This is another vulnerable moment. If she answers, if she's still on here, this is going to be another vulnerable moment. I just realized who this was. Okay. And let's just see if she answers. Just say yes, Lindsay, if you're still here. Yeah. This is going to be a vulnerable moment for me because as I'm writing this book, I'm leaving really big void out of here. And I'm just glad that my niece, who I call my niece, we've been estranged for quite some time.
Wow. Okay.
I haven't talked to her in 10 years. I want to cry, and I'm just grateful that she's here. Her mother and I haven't talked in 10 years. She's the one who I said I got to send a note to.
Okay.
And I'm trying not to cry because I'm just so grateful. I have pictures that I want to come to New York and give to her and stuff. And thank you for saying hello. And thank you for acknowledging and being here. I love you. I think about you often, and I miss you. And, you know, that's family capital right there. That I love her family. Her grandmother was like a mom to me when my mom wasn't around me. Her mom was like a sister to me. And, you know, I keep a lot of my shit silenced, but I've had some good memories with that little girl right there, and I love her to pieces. So
Okay.
thank you for being here. So moving on, as far as family capital, you know, I don't keep scores. I just, I love my family. I love my family. But, you know, if they don't want to have nothing to do with me, then they don't want to have nothing to do with me. And I have to respect that, you know? So.
And Tracy says, in the reality, at the end of the day, after all the day has been, we need to take responsibility for how we choose to react to it all. You know, yesterday was a day that, and I'm not anybody that knows me and knows me personally, I don't nag. I fight through stuff. Usually, if anything, I get quiet, and then that's not healthy, right? Because then all I do is I have festering thoughts, and I'm in the dark, the black area myself, and all those demons emerge. And so I think that what happens is that a lot of people, they're like, oh, well, you know, it's kind of like when somebody attempts to harm themselves or whatever. They never think anything of it, you know, and commonly what people say is like, well, I wish they would have talked to me. And it's just like, well, that's not the way it works.
No.
When somebody's suffering through that stuff, that's not how they do it, because they're ashamed that that's how they feel about themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that this show is not about that.
No.
But it gets to a place where it's just like, hey, they don't want to fill somebody else's life with their baggage.
You know what, Brian? I feel the same way. And yesterday I could feel your heart. You know, we're connected that way. We're connected that way. And I respect that space, because I don't know if you've seen that in me yet, but there will be times you'll see it in me.
Absolutely.
That I fight it. You know, we fight it because it is a dark place that we go. And that's why we love self-development, because we know that we got to get out of that head as much as we can. But there is a chemical imbalance with that too, that you're fighting.
That's
like
right.
You said, it's just not somebody that's just having a summer blues or something. It's something in us that brings us down to that level.
Right.
And so again, you know, I'm just glad my niece is here. I don't know where it's going to go from there, but you know, I'd love to see her this summer. She has kids that I've never seen. I mean,
Wow.
I do stalk her every now and then. I do know she's there, you know, Facebook lets you do that, but she gave me a gift just showing up here, if anything else. So, you know, this is why I say we do change when we realize that we are in a place that people don't want to be around us, or that we're just, you know, I'm used to keeping 41 years old before I told anybody about my uncle. 41 freaking years old. You keep so much shit so long that when you come out, you're not a pretty person.
Right.
You're not, you, it's all that shame and guilt and hoping people give you a chance for you to, that's why I give other people chances in relationships, because I've known that I've needed chances in relationships. You can't expect or do what you don't expect to do for someone else.
Right.
You know?
And the whole public opinion of things, and, you know, that you have to do things a certain way and all of this, it's just like, that's what, when somebody's suffering from something, it's they're just trying to survive the moment, the day, the hour. They don't care about how it appears.
No.
And I think that people that hide it, downplay it, whatever, it's just like, okay, they might not have issues or repercussions of that, but I would rather just let it all be out. And if you don't like me as a result of it, oh well.
Right.
I'm just a human being. Anybody that truly knows me, I'll give the shirt off my back to anybody.
Absolutely.
But when I'm suffering, I'm down for the count. It hits me hard.
I
And
know.
yesterday was one of those days.
I know. I could feel it for you. You know, we've had shows before because we're transparent about this that I could just feel the stress between us, but I knew it wasn't me. And
Right.
I just love how you humbled and said, Lynn, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, buddy, I may have those days too. That's what we talk about relationship capital, right?
Yeah.
Is knowing that we have to take turns having our bad day and still muster through it.
Well,
and we didn't use the excuse, Lynn, I'm not in a good mood. I can't do the show today.
Well, and it's one of the I mean, these terms are not anything new to people, but when it's right in front of them, they don't know how to react to that.
Right.
But if I say, and I said this yesterday, I said, I'm having an anxiety attack. If I get quiet, it's not on purpose. It's not anything you did. I even took the ownership yesterday with a few people that pretty close to in a mastermind that I'm like, hey, I wasn't my rambunctious, fun, interactive self. I was going through an anxiety attack. I said, I apologize if I was a little bit more quiet.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, I had no idea.
Right. Because we're not trying to emphasize what we're going through. We're trying to just get through what we're going through.
And without harming anybody or making anybody wrong or upsetting anybody. Because it's not intentional.
Right.
Not intentional at all.
And I think it's very important to talk about this, Brian, because a lot of people do suffer with this in silence, especially in families. And because of that, people do the assumption to think, well, that person's an asshole, but maybe you don't know what they're going through. This is a silent thing that many people go through. And then you feel bad because you did banter. I mean, you did bite somebody's head off. And you're like, I want to apologize for that, but I don't want to sit there and explain to you why, because I don't want to use an excuse. I just can say, I'm so sorry for what I just did at that moment. My sister keeps calling me. Hey, I'm live right now. You better go watch Facebook because I'm saying my sister Roxy's on the phone. We're talking about family. So love you. Okay, well then goodbye.
That's awesome.
Well, she called again like she's thinking, oh shit, does my sister not want to talk to me now? And so, I'm like, look, you're live right now. So, but again, you got to take moments like that because you're repairing a relationship or you're picking up a relationship and you just need to be transparent, and that's what we are, is real and raw here. We're always going to show up, but we're going to show up imperfectly. I feel that I think that we help each other in that way so much, Brian. And
I agree.
I just love that, that we're showing the human life. We're not just trying to be a cookie cutter show.
Well, and I think that a safe haven is kind of a loaded thing because anybody that's a true source of anybody that's dealt with mental health, anything like that, so anybody can say it, but to actually be a space of it, you know what I mean? Like where they really want to know versus just kind of like you're the only person at the table. That's not support. That's not connection. That's not trying to relate, right?
It's not real.
I mean, I get it, that some people just don't know what to do and they would rather stop and, just be a space. But it's kind of like when somebody passes away and everybody starts coming and, saying, hey, if there's anything I can do, right? They're far from thinking about anything that they want to have anybody else do. And especially if they're an independent person, they ain't going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Now, instead of somebody, like, hey, I made you meals for the next week. Yeah. They took those action because they know you're probably not eating. And the last thing you're thinking about is cooking.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they're in action. It's not doesn't mean they don't care about it. It's just that to me, that's when those moments come up, it's kind of a blanketed thing.
Yeah.
Instead of letting your actions be the governing force of what you can do for that person.
Right. We got some comments here. I want to go through real quick. We got Ray. We talked about friendship yesterday. So we love you, Brian. And then he says, we had your back, brother.
I appreciate it.
And then, oh Lord, for me. And there's my sister, Roxy. She showed up. So I see you. Yeah. Okay. Then Lizzie. Roxy, Lindsay's here, our niece. This is like, of all days to have family, I have family here. And this is really, really cool. I couldn't have planned this any better. Like I said, sometimes I use the excuse of being all the way in Montana that allows me not to be connected. But what's really nice is that my family, we may not talk all the time or anything or whatever, but there's true love there. There's true bonds there. There's, there's things that every family goes through stuff. But at the end of the day, it's the hard times when people come together. That's the invisible line of love that we should have in our life. And that, oh, you damn Skippy. So I told you, Roxy, if you ever come to my Facebook Live, you better be nice. That's all I got to say. No. So, yeah, so no, it's been great. She and I set boundaries, and, and I'll say this transparently, since we've talked, she's done really good. I have not had old triggers of wanting to beat her ass or nothing like that. Those are just, unfortunately, they're triggers with me where I would get angry. I mean, like that's an old pattern that, is like a light switch. And we've actually had some really good conversations, leaving happy, respecting my time. So, it's been healthy. That's why I always believe you should give relationships another try. Right. After so much time, because your perception, and we get older, we realize, do we want the regrets of the last times we talked to be things that we regret? When when you hear someone died, what do you do automatically? You like, what's my last conversation with them? How did we leave it? And life's too short for that,
In my experience, the last time is, it's, I wish I had one more time. It's out of the regret factor. It's not actually out of the last memory that you had with that person.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. Like for my sister and I, we've had a lot of tough times, and it's hard to let people that have been mentally and physically abuse you or take your time. But I'm trying to help her now with realizing, forget about that. Still love them or respect them and let it go. Mm-hmm. But she was the one I used the analogy yesterday. I said, look, every time you move, you think of the new house. You don't think of the old house. You got to clean and clutter and move on to the next one, and think of the great memories you're going to make. Try not to be stuck in the old patterns, because that doesn't help you when you're down in the pit.
Correct.
What's going to help you is to say, okay, well, what can I think? What can I think that would be better? What can I productively think or do or change or change my scenery or whatever to help you when you feel that way, right. And so.
Well, and, like, every family is going to be a little bit different. I mean, an only child versus somebody that has multiple brothers and sisters, and then those dynamics of the children in a family. But it's like, any time that you interact, and I need to do better in this, when the world gets back together and people are in person or whatever, is that if I have an upset with somebody, I'm just going to take an action that's different, right? I'm going to do something like, I'm going to sponsor the meat for the barbecue, right? Because even if I have an upset with somebody, there's still something I can do to reframe that.
Right.
Maybe I don't talk to those people that I really want to talk to.
Right.
But I reframe it in such a way where I'm still being a contribution to the overall experience. And then who knows what that's going to look like? Who knows what that's going to make me feel like?
Right.
You know what I mean? So instead of like, another family gathering where these people, and I know how it's going to go, and you're mocking it all before it actually happens.
Right.
But then you're dreading it eventually, especially if it's not positive.
Well, you got to keep an open mind. If you don't keep an open mind, you're always going to be right. If you already think it's shitty and you go there with a shitty mentality, you're going to pick every shitty. You see, that's shitty. That's shitty. That sucks. You see, and you go back into the old. You're in a current situation, and you're going back to a situation in your head, not realizing everybody else here is being nice and being civil and not savages. You've got to be in that moment and get a new perception, a perspective of where you are now, because we all do grow. For good or bad, we do grow. For good or bad, we don't stay being the same people. We always change.
Right.
Some for the better, some for the worse. But the point is if you have love and respect for that person, and you might have the outs, you got to realize that you never know when we're going to be gone from this earth.
Absolutely. 100%.
And you got to build the good memories.
And I think that, you know, like when it comes to family, like if it's gatherings or whatever, take a leadership role. You know what I mean? Like show up differently, do something where it's like, you know, you can work through it, that you're not going to allow relationships or feelings or whatever to influence. Like, hey, I still have a voice. I can still do this. I can still use my skills and talents in whatever way possible, you know, where you give up that you give up any negativity to be like, hey, there's something good I can do here.
Yeah.
You know, instead of me waiting and then let's say maybe I have a leadership skill or a trait that nobody else does, right? Doesn't make you any better. It just means that, hey, I'm going to use my leadership qualities to streamline this process, or I got those set of skills handled. Let me be that contribution for this class or family reunion or gathering of some kind, or the Zoom call, you know. I know the technology. Let me do it all, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm just trying to take like different in-person gatherings. Yes, Dennis, absolutely. Is that and bring them to a modern day world that we're in, right?
Yeah.
Where we're talking about families. Oh.
You know, families are friends too. They become family. Like Brian, you're my family. You know, I love you, you know? And so good friends keep you on track, you know? And they do it from a loving place, not to call you out and be an ass or to judge you or to mock you, but they do it in such a loving way that it's just so that you could be a better person of yourself, that they can see that you are, or that you will be, or that they, you know, like we said, right, with Jerry, we just love him. It's just the energy, you know, and it goes to say that, like you said, you didn't know that what Jerry and I saw in you. We need that. We need that constructive criticism, you know. Oh, Roxy says, such an inspiration. Roxy, I know you're a good, loving person, and you know, my sister, she's the one that had the baby 3 days after her 14th birthday. She had to grow up fast. She has 7 children. She's been through a lot of heartache in her life. And, you know, we are Latina, so we're going to be mad and ugly, you know, but I'm trying to change her to come to my side. Come on this way. Come on, have a better life, you know? And, you know, she's 5 years younger than me. So, you know, I feel really, Lynn, yeah, you are an inspiration, Roxy. You've come through a lot. You don't give yourself credit, and you are a wonderful person. You just need to see yourself from other people's perspective, and you can get through this. You will get through this. So so yeah, you know, it just it's one of those things when we are just being humble and vulnerable to accept who we are and say, okay, that's something about us that we don't like, we can't change, but we're going to work on that. Because when you see it in somebody else that you like in somebody else, that means you have the desire in your soul to have the same thing. You just need to start working on it, and you can't give up on it. And that is with action. That is with knowing and believing in what you want to accomplish. You know, so it comes with the friends that become your family.
I think that please. I think that the things that we put most of our headache, heart, mind in that causes that is stuff that we love. It's stuff that goes to our core. If we didn't care about it, we would never go through that.
Right.
You know, like if people are very important to us, regardless if they're family, you know, your contribution to the world, what's it going to be? You know?
Yeah. So Ray says he has a question for you. So hopefully he'll ask the question.
Yeah. What do we got, Ray?
Yeah, bring it on. I think. I think.
And I think too is that, you know, it spurred up an idea in my head that there's some family members that I have that the things that they don't, the things that they do are questionable, right? I'm one to talk, right? So there's my answer number one. The things I do is probably questionable to other people. So you see how it gets vicious where it's like, oh, my actions are all great and justified, and then but it's everybody else. So but by what was just said, it opens me up to some family members who remain nameless, where things that they do are questionable, or how they treat people are questionable. But if I look out of the same lens as I always do, it's going to look the same way.
Right.
But if I'm like, okay, that's in the past now, I can either choose to leave it there, or I can bring it back and like a little notch on their, on their who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you can think for 1 minute and say, there may have been a reason why they're this way.
Correct.
And that's where we forget to evaluate and say, there may be a true reason and a validation in their hearts of why they are acting this way that I don't know. And if I maybe did know, then I can respect their perspective, and maybe I can even help them to look at it a different way.
And that's commonly the missing gap, is between the perception we have, what they did, and their perception behind it, right?
Ray, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, moving on.
Yeah, moving on. If that was your question.
So it's one of those things where we go back to perception. It's like we only can have a perception of something that's presented, right? Or an action that somebody took, right? That's where we make the meaning out of it. But the part that's always and will be missing is the understanding about why they did it.
Right.
That's always going to be missing unless there is some deeper level understanding where what happened there, or what led you to do that or make that choice, right? That's not an interrogation. You just want to understand.
Right. And if we would, when we get into a situation, if we could just take our perception out of the way and stop for a minute and evaluate and go, you know what? Maybe I don't know everything to have the perception I have.
Correct. Yep.
And if we did take that, that's why I like the 4 Agreements book.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with you. It has something to do with them. Don't take it personal.
Right.
Don't take a person's personal and make it your own. It has nothing to do with you. That's why what I've learned is when somebody's angry, and then I had to look at my own life and see, but when people get angry, you need to say, wow, wait, stop. Sometimes I don't even hear what they're angry about first, Brian, because I realize that, oh shit, this person's hurting. Something's going on, and they're using this as a way to vent. I mean, that's like huge for me. I'm like, okay, something's going on. I don't know what it is, and I'm going to just let them be, and that's because, that's not a place to ask for a raise or anything like that. Now, my sister has a question. Go ahead, Roxy.
Yeah.
Was before the joke.
Was beyond the joke. How do we
begin to stop getting stuck when you have a bad day? That's a good question.
I think it goes back to 3 things. It goes back to proper rest, proper diet, and exercise consistently, right? I mean, I'm at a conference, so this is not normal, right? But just like any conference, there's people to see. There's, there's activities around that you either want to be a part of or not. There's the catching up with people. Exercise is usually, you have to make an extra concerted effort because not a lot of people want to do it, right? And especially to do it as a group, so I think a lot of those are challenging when you're eating out all the time, right? It's not like we're going to a grocery store, right? So when you combine all of that, and it's like how just based on the way that the world is now, we haven't had in-person conferences ever since February of last year, right before what happened went on. So relationships and all of that were suffering, right? So I think it starts with your proper rest, whatever that is for you. I know my girlfriend harps on it all the time that I need to get better rest, because when
she could see the difference.
Absolutely, she noticed the difference right away, and yesterday was not one of those days.
Yeah.
And then a proper meal, proper health, in terms of your dieting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, eggs, any kind of great protein is great, right?
Yeah.
But you got to do it consistently if you're ever going to see any results, right?
Right.
It has to become a habit where it's like, okay, every day I'm going to have 2 eggs. Well, what happens when you don't have those 2 eggs? Then you feel sluggish, and
Yeah.
then you have to pay for it enough to remind yourself, like, I'm never going to never allow that to happen again.
Right.
You
For
know,
for me,
so
when I get stuck in a bad day, I do stop myself. This has become a habit that's helped me, and I had to do that today too. Was what are the good things? What are the good things?
yeah,
Can I be grateful for? Because all I keep thinking is all the sad things. I'm like, okay, with sad, there's good, and vice versa. What can I be happy about today? So today I was happy that the scale went down. I was like, okay. I'm like, I focused on that. I mean, it might be only a freaking half a pound. I'm a week away from 2 months, and I'm at almost 19 pounds of
nice.
new weight, not old weight, but new weight. So I'm like, okay, almost 10 pounds a month. I can't bitch about that. It's just a
I
slow process, but I could be happy about that. And so it's one of those things where I say, okay, I got to put more in the good column and focus on maybe one of those good columns.
A couple other
So
pieces, Ray. I think now this is one that works out very well for me. There's 2 things, but one only might work for you. Get if you're home or if you're working. Is number one is to be in silence, right? To just be in silence, no noise, no triggers. You know, if you're around people, you aren't hearing a word that they're saying. Don't fool yourself to believe you are, right? The second one is that if you're able to do it, I find a lot of joy in, and that's to just close your eyes for a few minutes.
mhm.
So if you can combine being in a place of silence, closing your eyes, because here's the thing, your brain is overworking itself. Your brain is overworking itself because it doesn't have enough to go with. So why would you want it to work overtime to just go more down the rabbit hole?
Yeah,
So if you're able to be in silence is number one. And if you're not working or whatever, just to take, you lay down in silence. You don't
yeah,
grab a blanket, you don't grab none of that where all of a sudden you're going to take a nap. If it turns into that, you might need it. Who knows?
yeah,
But just silence your brain,
yeah.
relax your brain. Your brain is your brain is essential to causing this.
Absolutely.
And
And
so you
we
can either push through, keep pushing through, have your brain keep doing more, do more, do more. No, you got to do less.
Okay, really quick. Here's something for a good column. She makes chicken and potato. I used to make chicken and potatoes for her. So at least to me, I hope in the last 10 years when you've done that, you at least thought of TT Lynn once or twice. So, and then here's what Scott said. Want to read that?
We are only stuck in traffic when we're unwilling to look for a detour. Our destination does not change, just our route. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I couldn't
I mean,
agree
it's no
more.
different than like when you look at every day and it's like some people they look at their goals daily and then as the day progresses, then they redo their goals, right?
Right.
Because when you started the night before, your goals are going to look a lot different than when it's halfway throughout the day. Like right now, I mean, here in the Midwest, right? It's 12:30. You might want to retool your goals for the rest of the day because of what you got done and all of that.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, Ray, everybody's a little bit different, but the only thing that matters is if you do it consistently,
Right.
because the results are only going to come and be felt if you do it over and over again. You make it your go-to, right? Because it what you don't practice consistently doesn't really matter, right? Like I want to lose weight, but I don't go to the gym or I don't go for a walk or yeah.
Or I don't change my eating habits or whatever, Yeah, I
or
totally
or
agree.
like or like I eat great and I'm on a keto diet or I go to, get organic food, but I have a tub of ice cream every night. Well,
Yeah. How do you expect to get results?
correct.
So
And the
yeah,
consistency works both ways, the good and bad. The consistency of eating well is a great thing. The consistency of a late night snack that's ice cream every night, that's a bad thing.
yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I have a big sweet tooth. Big
Oh, me
sweet tooth.
too. Me too.
But, consistency in a good way, not consistency in a bad way.
Right, right. So yeah, I love that, you know, unfortunately in families we don't learn all this stuff, you know.
No.
We don't learn that we're you know, like with siblings, we're supposed to learn how to articulate and talk to other people, but you know, we don't seem to understand the value in appreciating the things that when you're in a dark place, you can go back and revisit those good places. That's some of the things that have got me through life, is to think of some good memories.
Yeah.
That helps when I'm in a bad day. I think of some good memories,
Mm-hmm.
so that gets me through to, you know, or I think of the funny shit, you know, funny times and goofy times, you know. You just need to get out of your own way in order, like the detour thing, like Scott said, you know, you've got, if this way isn't working, there's another way. There's many ways to get from Montana to Florida.
Right.
I mean, there's many ways for everything, you know. Just like this core math or regular math, you could do it the long way or the short way, but if you end up with
Well,
the answer, that's all that matters.
and Scott, thank you very much for not only being with us today, but also though for sharing what you did, because that's doing something completely different, right?
Yes, yes,
Is that the detour is disrupting what you normally do, which might be
exactly.
fighting through it, or if I just have another cup of coffee, or if I just put in more hours, then I'm going to do better. Well, in this case, mental health, or all of that is like, okay, do less, right?
Right.
Do less, go somewhere else. Like one of the examples was given, and it is about if you can't sleep, right? One of the worst things you could do is fight trying to go back to sleep
Yeah. Yeah.
versus just going to a different room, read a book or read a magazine or something with a blanket, which is normal to you. You get comfortable doing that. And then, 15, 20 minutes later, you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Well, you just had to reframe it, you know?
Yep. And it's funny you say that, because like at nighttime, I don't want to fall asleep with the TV on or nothing. And yet I don't like putting something on, even Hulu, that I know I'm gonna fall asleep and I have to rewind. But for me, it's like, okay, I'll put something on I really want to watch, and I start watching and I fall asleep. And I realize that, damn it, you know, so I've at least learned, Lynn, put the timer on for the hour so that it doesn't go any further than that on the show.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it, like you said, if it's not working, you need to find an alternative.
Well,
You
yeah.
know,
And that's not always easy to do, because when you're in it, you just want to survive it. You're not thinking about opportunities. Your brain is not creative in a space of just trying to get through life.
yeah, yeah,
Not at all, right?
right.
You're just trying you're just trying to not make anybody wrong, survive the moment, and that's not where creativity
Yeah.
lies.
Hey, Lindsay, I sent you a friend request. Hopefully, you'll accept it. I'm just proud that she knows how to make chicken and potatoes. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So,
So like when Lynn, when we talk about like taking advantage of you and families, I mean my family's different than yours because I don't have any siblings. So what would be a couple examples of what taking advantage is, or what that's looked like to you?
or
Or yeah, when a
or,
family member's taking advantage of you.
or what it was in the past, because it's,
Sure. Yeah. Just
you
to give a
know,
context for everybody watching.
taking advantage in my family is I was always the fall guy. I
Mm.
you know, it'll be in my book and stuff, but you know, my mom had other kids and stuff, and as time went by, I wanted to find my siblings, and yet, you know, I looked like I was looking to make trouble for my mom. And
Mm.
then my siblings, my mom would pit us and say, Lynn's making up stories, you know, she doesn't know what she's talking about, that kind of stuff. So, you know, my sister had come to me like, what are you doing this and that, you know, until you stop and say, well, let's look at these facts and let's look at this and this and that. So I was always trying to be transparent. I was always trying to say, I don't care what the reason was that my mom had other kids. That didn't matter. I wasn't judging my mother for that. But I felt it was right for me to know my other brothers and sisters. We have the same mom. So to me, that was important.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, you know, we all have different ways to look at things, but I was the fall guy. And, you know, and then there was times, because I babysat my brothers and sisters after my brother left, you know, And yeah, you loved my mom because she was crazy. Yeah, you don't even know half the stories yet, Lindsay. But the bottom line is that we realize that being the fall guy. Matter of fact, Lindsay's mom, she's part of my family. I used to go over there, and her mom would say, "But mom, Lynn wanted to go somewhere and blame it on me. I was the fall guy. I was always her fall guy."
Right.
Granted, her mom knew that it really was her, but I always got blamed for stuff. I
Okay.
was like, what? So even in my adopted families I had along the way, I was always the fall guy. Well, Lynn did that, or it's Lynn's fault. One time we went to go somewhere and her mom told us to be back by 10 o'clock at night or something, right? And I said, come on, we got to go home. I was more scared of getting her ass home than she was, right? We showed up 2 hours later. You know what she did? Well, Mom, Lynn was driving. I can't help it that Lynn didn't want to leave. So again, that's I was always taking advantage that way. And I felt bad because I didn't want her mom to not like me or think I wasn't responsible, but I took it as the fall guy. That's an example
Okay.
of taking the place that sometimes I knew, and I think that's why I get very defensive sometimes because it was always put upon Lynn's nice. We're gonna blame it on Lynn, and because she's so nice, let everybody get mad at Lynn because people that knew me knew I was gonna tell the truth, but again, other people would make stories, and so I would be the fall guy.
So, okay, I'm glad you say that because it just opened up a couple thoughts. Is that my family, prior to my dad passing away, family reunions would waver a little bit, right? Like people wouldn't want to put in the work and, whatever. I mean, they would have families and I get it, but I think that they allow distance to get in the way, especially if you knew a year in advance, and we're not talking like people that were flying or, they couldn't drive to where we were, right?
Yeah,
It might be like 4 or 5 hours maximum one way. And I noticed that out of the good nature of some family members is that they would always host the family reunion, right? Like they
right,
would do all the work, they would do the invitations, they would, it would be BYOB for everybody, but they would make it all happen. Okay.
right.
And it just seemed that like without some infrastructure or some conversations, it was always the same people manning up again, right? Because they got a lot out of it,
Yeah,
and they didn't want it to fail.
yeah,
And so like taking advantage of it would be out of the family would be is like, well, that person, so now they're manipulating their personality, that if we don't now, whether or not they were doing it on purpose or intentionally, I have no idea.
yeah,
But it just felt like the good nature of some family members to host these events would they would take it over,
yeah,
because that silence and the waiting for somebody to stand up to the plate, they wouldn't do it.
yeah. And I was
And
always, yeah, I was the one that always stood up to the plate.
you know,
And yet it took me a long time to realize that, but I do want to do this. But they're like, well, Lynn's going to do it anyways.
right.
And so it's one of those things where you just got to realize you do it because you want to do it, but other people will see it like you being, oh, that's the gullible one. That's the one that's willing to do. And I want to say hi to Larry showed up and Scott Ricard showed up.
Cool.
Thank you for being
Thanks for being
here.
here, guys.
And yeah, it is a great analogy. So yeah, it's one of those things where you can either look at it as taking advantage, because that can be a perspective, or maybe you can see the perspective that that person wanted to do that regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, maybe they chose to always host it because they're like, shit, I don't want to go to Ethel's house. I don't want to go over there. I
Sure.
rather we get the headache. You know what I mean? Like maybe that's the reason, because they just didn't want to go to somebody else's
Well,
house.
I think it's a lot of comfort, whatever's most comfortable, what's the least resistance. And
Right.
the least resistance is like, well, this is a pretty posh place right here. Why, all I have to do is show up. I don't have any accountabilities. Of course, that's the easier of all the options.
Right,
Because you
right.
don't have to have integrity. The only integrity you need to have is whether or not you say you're going to be there, and then if you're there or not. That's it. But when you start, you just made me think of people purposely doing things wrong so they don't get asked to do it again. I mean, it sounds so counterintuitive, but
But, but it'll work. That's manipulation, though.
correct. They're like, oh, I'm just gonna screw it. I mean, and that's a whole nother thing.
Show.
I mean, we're we're actually talking about like where they may not even realize they're taking advantage
Oh my God.
about you, but of you, but
I'm proud of my daughter saying this.
that's cool. Yep.
That
Positive
I'm proud
energy
of
brings great vibes. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
but it's like let's just say that for the context without what Tracy just said, that I mean, but that pattern is created somewhere. They know that this person is a great person. They know that this person is going to make all the food. They know that they'll do the work regardless if anybody else does any of the work. That's just who they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to believe that's not taken advantage of sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And what's taken advantage is, let's say, okay, they're going to make the food, but why don't you give them some money? Or why don't you bring the ingredients?
Correct.
Like, why don't you do things to show the appreciation of them doing something that you're not doing?
Right.
Well,
or saying anything other than like, I'm not your.
I know, but I always felt that way. That's why when I say Roxy, I say Lisa, which is my daughter, Lisa, Roxy. It's just a brain thing there.
I think it's like when anything that can make it in motion, like I'll buy the ingredients, or how about I do this? I mean, one of the things in most families that there's never a shortage of for a gathering is food, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but it just blows my doors off when it's just so empty.
Yeah.
Or there's just this reservoir of emptiness there that they're like, wow, I can't think about what I could possibly do to help this situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I could reserve the park. All the food is on me.
Right. Right.
Like make it easy for everybody.
Right.
But you're only going to do that thing.
Yeah.
You're not going to do it all.
Yeah. Well, a good example, when I used to come back to New York, I'd stay at Lindsay's mom's house. And because I was so grateful that me and the girls could stay at their house, I would buy groceries. I would buy a gift. I would spoil my niece. I would do all these things because I would have spent it at a hotel. Yep. But I also know that inconveniencing them as well. So, I mean, it's to show appreciation, It's the little things you do to say, to even it out where you are showing gratitude and not just taking all the time and not giving,
Well, and one thing I realized, I mean, Lynn, I mean, there is no taking, we're family. Gets together. It's like Meet the Browns. Is that, how much of an action person I am. And it's like, anytime you want to disrupt having people taking advantage of you, if you're always in action, never going to happen.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to have to deal with hearing about who did what and how much, and then all the measurement of it.
Right.
All you know is that you did your part. If the event turned out great, whatever it might be, you wash your hands of it and you move on.
Right.
You're not running it, like a video reel in your head.
Right.
In terms of, oh, that person could have did, and then you turn into gossip, drama.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nonsense.
If everybody watching, the next time you do go to a function or family or something, be very mindful. How can I help? How can I make this experience better than all the other ones I had in the past? How can I actually be more present to say that I'm going to help this person, or be, do the unspoken things, do the things that other people don't see,
Saved a lot of families. Yeah. Well, that may be true, Roxy. I don't necessarily know, because the lack of communication and the type of communication doesn't mean that those stories or incomplete matters are just going to go to rest.
No, but
you know?
Yeah, well, I think it's saying the fact that there was no gathering. I think that what she's saying is because there was no gathering, there was no like new gossip. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay,
You
yeah,
know,
but
that's where she's coming from. That she
I'm just
saved
saying
families. Yeah, you see, we saved a lot of families this
from new
past
stuff.
year
Okay.
from new stuff. So
I mean, if it's
thank you, Ray.
pre-existing, it doesn't mean it's going to go away. If anything, it might elevate a little bit.
No, but now you get where she was staying, right? Yeah, social distancing. Yeah, sure helps. Yeah. Yeah, but
social distance sure helps from new gossip or new.
Yep, exactly. So that again, this is what's great is all the different perspectives and all the different angles, and it's great to talk to people and start getting out of your own freaking head to get some new thoughts that come in that you can start volleying, do a volley with, than the ones that you're reprogrammed pre-recordings, which brings me to tomorrow, pre-recordings. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow we will not be live because Brian will be traveling and his conference and everything. So preempted, we are going to probably show one of our previous shows for tomorrow, but then we will be back Thursday. Yep. And then of course we have crazy Friday. So I'm pretty excited about that. We're almost running out of time here. But it saved a lot of violence at reunions. Absolutely. Yeah. So,
everybody watch out. It's raining water balloons,
Yeah, right. So anyhow, I really am thankful that my niece was here. While I'm writing this book, I really were leaving some chapters out, but she's part of some of my chapters. And, it just, life goes to show that, you do the best you can today. You can, and you can only hope to be the best. There's going to be people that don't want us in their families or this or that. So be it. You got to go where your friends become your family, And thank you, Scott.
Absolutely, Scott. It's great to have you here, man. And I gotta check out your show and give you a shout out to you and your co-host here this weekend. When you do your show, I'm
excited because he's going to be on StreamYard and he's going to find a whole new way of live streaming the way we do. It's awesome. Going to make his life so much better. And I'm just honored to be a little smidgen of helping in that transition. So
I do have to say, when I see his photos waking up in Florida, I'm like, I get a little jealous. Like, hey, here's my view, at 7 a.m. or whatever.
I know, right? I love it. And I love that Scott's being vulnerable and he's actually singing and sharing that with the world. Imperfectly is the best way to be. Just do it. And taking actions, and and that's what I'm trying to accomplish with the couple of books, the 3 books I plan to be publishing before the end of the year. The fact that you've inspired me because you have worked, and I will be talking about you in my next book. As far as look at you putting all your work together and find touching it. It's just I already feel like I'm on a mission with Jerry. I want everybody to write books. I want everybody to feel their vulnerability. I want everybody to feel that we don't need to be stuck in the patterns we've been in. We are allowed to go and make our world be what we want it to be. Let our life happen for us, not to us.
Right.
And relationship capital, it's awesome. Like working on this book and the people that have come, and the acknowledgments, it's just a great place to see where we're at, Mm-hmm. Oh, there we go. My sister says, I love haters.
I love my haters. It's a way to get great attention when people get jealous of your great energy.
Great energy. Yeah. Well, one thing I'm having a hard time, but I realize vulnerability for me, I like to hide. I don't like to be center of attention. That's why I love having a co-host or doing my other Live, Love, Laugh, which after I write the book, I will be back to doing that. It's because I don't want it to be about me. I don't like doing lives by myself because I feel very insecure and very whatever about it. I'm going to have to push myself to do that. But I feel like, shit, Lynn's being crazy. She's talking to herself again, kind of perspective. But that's my perception. And I realize that's not the feedback I'm getting back. The people are saying, no, they like when I do that. They like when I'm being vulnerable. I'm like, you just like seeing, look at Lynn, she's a fool. But I want everybody else to feel that they can do what you and I are doing, Brian. And that's just doing the best we can every day and sharing a little bit of who we are, because we've had many people in our life that have inspired us to be where we're at now, despite our depression, despite the things we've been through in life, to still show up and not use those as our excuses as to why not showing up.
Yeah.
So the accountability.
And the consistency of it, it's just like, hey, excuses and blame.
Yeah.
I try to remove it everywhere in my life. That doesn't work for me. But there's just some days where it's like, if it appears that way to somebody else, it's not intended at all. Right.
Yeah.
We all have our stuff that we need to go through in life.
You should. Everybody should. We have ran out of time. Brian, I want to say on here, you be safe.
I will.
I'm glad you're doing better today. I love you. You know, I'm a phone call away or text away. You know that. I mean that sincerely. So everyone, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you and love you. And thank you for my family showing up on this family section that we had today. That means the world to me. I will start writing it down. So you guys have a great one.
We'll see you live back on Thursday.
Okay. Yes. Thursday. Don't forget. See you guys later. Love you.
Bye, everyone.